All right, Assalamu alaikum one more time. I just want to kick the program off by Jazakumullah khair to care, our beloved scholar, Dr. Yasser. And before we do anything, I just want to make a disclaimer. EPIC, as you know, EPIC is a 501c religious organization. EPIC doesn't endorse any candidate, any political parties. EPIC stays neutral, inshallah ta'ala. With that context in mind, this program is to be taken, inshallah ta'ala. The MC for today's program, her name is Sister Afnan Akram. She grew up in EPIC, one of our young sisters who grew up within EPIC, finished her undergrad in 2016, went on to finish her law school in 2019 from SMU, currently works at the Disabilities of Texas, Disabilities Rights for of Texas. That is correct. Did I say it right? Okay, it was close. She works as a lawyer. She's one of our own, mashallah. She is our MC, Sister Afnan Akram. I'm going to hand this off to her so that she can get the program started, inshallah ta'ala. Sister Afnan, I'm going to give you the microphone, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Jazakallah khair, Brother Samir, for the introduction. So my name is Afnan, and I'll be moderating today, introducing all the speakers that we have. But before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're talking about today. So the main event of today's topic is Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. Even if you don't know who she is, you've heard of her. Her name's been around for a really long time. Dr. Afia is a Pakistani woman who was tried and criminally charged in the United States in violation of international treaties and human rights laws. Dr. Afia was kidnapped in 2003, and she was unheard from until 2008, which is 5 years later. And when they found her, she was found in Afghanistan, and she was charged with the attempted murder of US officials. The media painted her as a worldwide menace. There was a search for her when she had disappeared, and everybody was calling her the lead recruiter for female terrorists. In reality, there's no evidence that Afia Siddiqui had any ties to terrorism. She was never charged with terrorist offenses in the United States, nor was there any link to her of having any link to terrorist organizations in any court of law. In reality, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui was a tiny 90-pound, 5-foot mother of 3, and she was a doctor of neuroscience. 18 years ago, she was 13 years ago. So 18 years ago, this whole issue started, and she was sentenced to prison for 86 years for a crime that no one can prove she committed. During this time, she has suffered extreme amounts of physical, mental, and emotional violence, and she still has 73 years left to serve. The prison that she's been held in for the past 13 years is right here in Fort Worth, which is right in our backyards. So I think this is really important for us. Jazakallah khair for everyone for coming together to listen to what's going on, and so that we can take next steps to figure out how to resolve this situation, this horrendous injustice that's been happening right in our backyards here in DFW. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for tonight. He lives right next door, Dr. Yasser Fadi, our EPIC's residential scholar.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walaha ma ba'd. When I was a freshman at the University of Houston, and I've said this story on my Facebook page, but I'll give it in a little bit more detail today. I had a meeting with my advisor at the School of Engineering, and I was literally 16 years old. I was a freshman at the age of 16. And I was entering campus for the first time. I had taken the bus there. I didn't have a car, couldn't drive. I was 16. And I was trying to find the College of Engineering at the University of Houston. And I went here and there. I had a map in front of me, but I'm just out of high school, 16 years old, could not make head or tails of where I was on campus. Literally just panicking, time is winding down, and I'm worried. I have literally 10 minutes left, and I have to find the School of Engineering. I'm looking around, and I see a hijabi on campus. And this is 1990, 91, and it was rare to see a hijabi on campus back then. And I'm like, should I not? I'm like, I don't have any choice. So I walked up to her, I said, sister, please, can you help me? I have an interview in 10 minutes with my advisor at the School of Engineering, and I have no idea where the School of Engineering is. I think she could see the fluster and the desperation in my voice. She goes, don't worry, brother, I will take you there myself. And she walked with me. I was in the center of the campus, engineering is on the side of the campus. The University of Houston is a large campus. She walked with me saying, don't worry, I will take you myself. You will get there on time. And in the course of that conversation, I found out her name was Afia, and that this was her last few weeks at the University of Houston because she had just got transferred to MIT. And I was thinking to myself, wow, she got into MIT. She was at the School of Engineering, and now she's transferring to MIT. And that was the first encounter I had, and I had one more encounter with her. 1 week or 2 weeks after this, before she left Houston to go to Boston, there was a conference at one of the hotels. We had invited Dr. Jamal Badawi, Hakimullah Jawan, the basketball player, had come as well. And it was the largest conference of the year. Back then, those conferences were 50, 100 people. We thought that was a lot back then. You know, things have changed a lot since that time frame. And I remember I was at that conference, and Dr. Jamal spoke, other people spoke, and there was one female speaker, and only one. And it just so happened that for me, it was the first time in my life ever hearing a female speak about Islam. Again, this was rare back in the 80s, 90s. It just didn't happen that much, right? And I remember, of course, it was Dr. Aafia, and I remember thinking to myself that she is so confident about Islam. And I was mesmerized by her eloquence. You know, there's a grainy video online. And there's the only speech that she has online is that one. At one point, the camera pans into the audience. If you look very carefully, you know what you're looking for. You'll see a 16-year-old Yasir Qadi somewhere in the audience, beardless. So I was a young kid back then, right? You'll see me in the middle of the audience over there. And that was that. I forgot all about her and whatnot. That was the course of the interaction. I remember Dr. Aafia, MIT. I heard later on she finished her PhD, whatnot, because obviously she was very active at the MSA before I came. I came and she left the same semester, the same month. And the people that were at the MSA, they told me that, yes, when she was here, she was one of the main activists of our MSA. She would organize sisters, halaqat, da'wah tables, this and that. So her legacy kind of sort of lived on to our batch, and, you know, we picked up after that. Completely forgot about her and her name and everything. More than 20 years later, and all of a sudden I'm getting news articles. Al-Qaeda lady, spokesperson, bomb builder, this and that. And it turns out it's the same sister who's 5 foot tall, very, very fragile, and they're accusing her of being some terrorist mastermind. And I remember thinking, that's not the Afia that we knew in the MSA. That's not the legacy she left behind. And one thing leads to another, trials going on. We're following the trials. A number of my mutual friends, because again, Houston is a small city and many of her family's friends are my family's friends. So we were keep track and whatnot. And I remember thinking to myself back then, and I'm going to verbalize this thought, even though may Allah protect us, it might get us in trouble or whatnot, but wallah, it needs to be said. Something doesn't add up. The story does not make sense. There's just too many bizarre details or missing informations. It just didn't make sense to me. And it's still, the more I read about it, the more there's a mysterious black box. So as we are here today, I want to make some points very clear. Me personally, I'm not making any statement for or against anything in the court. I don't know what happened, during that time frame. But I know certain things for facts. And these are undeniable facts. Fact number one, our government, after 9/11, overreacted. And they went after way too many innocent people. And they concocted false charges against numerous people. Whether Afia is one of them or not, I don't know. Wallah, I don't know. But I know for a fact, because I'm involved in many of these cases at a secondary level. I know some of the people that are in jail and whatnot. I know for a fact that our government went berserk. And they started trying to throw a large net upon the Muslim community, considering even the most innocent activities to be terrorist activities. And even when there was a gray area, they read in the worst. And even when there was a small thing, they gave ridiculous sentences. People were sent to lifetime sentences for sending baby food to Iraq. Well known. Sending powdered baby food to Iraq, saying, oh, this is against our laws, now a terrorism charge and whatnot. And there is a person still sitting in jail because of that. The Holy Land 5 Foundation, read what they did here in Dallas. Read the entire book, which I wrote a forward and a blurb to, written by Miko Pilet, wrote in it, the one that came to our masjid. He wrote a book about the Holy Land 5, and he said this is one of the greatest travesties of injustice in our generation, what they did. So fact number one, undeniable, our government went guns crazy and accused many innocent people of being terrorists when they were not. This is an undeniable fact. Fact number two, all of the hype and the accusations that they raised about her in the media, which should not have been done. You don't declare the person guilty before the trial. You don't leak to the press that she is Al-Qaeda's top female agent. You don't call her doctor, a bomb maker, whatever the name they gave her. But fact number two, all of these accusations, when the trial comes, all of a sudden they fizzle away and none of them she is charged with. This is an undeniable fact. All the hype that they developed around her, when the actual trial came, what they said was she picked up a gun and she attacked a Marine, a massive machine gun, and these two Marines, 6 foot tall, 6'5", and she is barely 5 foot, small lady, fragile, whatnot. That's the accusation. That's what she's in jail for, allegedly picking up a gun and attacking the Marine. Where did all the terrorism charges go? Where did all the bomb making? Where did the Dr. Al-Qaeda? All completely gone. This is an undeniable fact. Fact number three, we know that right after 9/11, our government, this is well known, read the exposés, Glenn Greenwald and all of the people that have written about this, journalists that have written books about this. Our government opened up places across the globe called black sites, operated by the CIA, in which they held people without charge, in which torture took place, in which unspeakable things happened, and this is now a fact that everybody knows, and even the government has acknowledged to a certain degree. Right after 9/11, as I said, they went berserk. And that same time frame is when Dr. Aafia Siddiqui's whereabouts are unknown. We don't know where she was during that time frame, when we know for a fact the government was operating illegal in third world dictatorship countries under the radar of governments. They were operating their black sites. Fact number four, it is completely legal for us to hire the best attorneys and to try our best to get a retrial based upon new facts that we now know that the government did not allow to be admitted or pretended it didn't know. We need to hire the best top attorneys and challenge the previous conviction, take them back to court and have another trial in light of now much more evidence that we have. But the American system, as you are aware, it is very difficult to work with after the prosecution has occurred. You are aware of this. That is the way the law is set up intentionally. Even if the government recognizes the person is innocent, to declare that innocence is a nightmare. This is even when they know and acknowledge it. How about when they have not yet acknowledged this? But it is our responsibility, communal responsibility, to hire the best lawyers and to make sure we get a retrial. And the final fact that I will say, fact number five, it is allowed for her to, even if there's no retrial, to live out her sentence in her native land of Pakistan, if the government, the two governments agree to this with their conditions. And the only reason they would do so is if pressure is put on both governments. It is legal for her to be taken back as long as some conditions are met. I don't know the legal jargon, but it is allowed to have a citizen of another country take their sentence in that land, and the least we can do is to take her back there. She will be at least closer to her family and children. She hasn't seen her children for Allah knows how many years, so at least to bring her back there. And then the final point, while she is here, a lot has happened. She has been attacked, hot water has been thrown on her, she's not being treated well in our jail. This is driving distance from our masjid. In all of America, she is here in the greater Dallas area. This is our, especially Fard Kifaya in this community, in the Dallas community. She's in our backyard. If we're not going to put pressure, if we're not going to hire the best lawyers to do this, then who else is going to do this? So I conclude by making a simple appeal to all of you. What can we do? First and foremost, awareness, awareness, awareness. The way governments work is by public pressure. The way these things happen is when petitions are signed. Look at movements, civil rights movement, Black Lives Matter. Look at these things. Public pressure does bring about some change. So raising awareness. Number two, legal fees. And our brother here is going to tell us more about this and whatnot. CARE has taken charge of this. And I am telling you, he might not be as blunt, I am telling you, lawyers are very expensive. And to hire the best lawyers, subhanallah. You know, I asked Mufti Taqi Uthmani when I was with him a while back, I asked him, Sheikh Saab, can we raise zakat funds to pay lawyers to help Muslim prisoners? And he said, yes, of course, you can raise zakat for this because they're your Muslim brothers and sisters. I didn't mention any name. I said, overall, can we raise zakat? He goes, yes, this is وَالْغَارِمِينَ وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. It comes under it directly. You must help your brothers and sisters. This was his fatwa, that you may even raise zakat for this. I said, Sheikh Saab, you know that lawyers, they charge an arm and a leg. This is not some faqir. He goes, no problem, it's fard kifaya. The community needs this. So we have to raise funds to hire the best lawyers, and CARE is able to do that. And then the final point as well is petitions to both governments to try to alleviate her situation right now, to try to make her in a better situation now, and allow her to, at least, the very least, even if no retrial happens, at least go back to her homeland and be closer to her family and her children. And then, of course, final point, dua, dua, dua. Make dua for our sister. She is our sister in faith. She is our sister in deen. And she is our sister in neighborhood and vicinity. She is here in the greater Dallas area, in the federal prison, driving distance from here. So it is our fard kifaya, maybe even fard ayn, for us to do something. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us all, help our sister Afia, and to free her swiftly, and to allow her to be back with her family and her children. Jazakumullah khair, and I'll pass it back to our MC.
Jazakallah khair, and Ameen to all your duas, Brother Yasser Qadi. That was a really interesting story about how your personal connection, how you met with her. And so to recap what he said, the things that we can do to help Sister Afia right now: raise awareness about the situation and things that are going on, help pay for legal fees, because as a lawyer, I can attest to the fact that we are really expensive. Petition the Pakistani and the US governments, and make lots and lots of duas, because a very good point that he made was not only is she our sister in Islam, but she is also literally our sister in the community as well. So I will pass on the mic to the next speaker, Sister Marwa, who, as Sheikh Yasser was saying, we need to hire the best of the best lawyers. So now we have Sister Marwa for that.
Thank you, Afnan. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I'd heard of Dr. Aafia's case before, but I didn't start representing her until January 2021 of this year. My first visit to her, I believe, was in late January. Dr. Aafia Siddiqui, like Sheikh Yasser was saying, is being held in Fort Worth, Texas. She's actually in a federal prison that's located on a naval air base. So she's in the middle of, the prison itself is separate, but it is located on the air base. So the first time I went in to visit, you go through the military checkpoint, you go in, you get your badge, then you drive through, and then you go up to the prison itself. Due to COVID restrictions, I'm not in the same room as Dr. Aafia. There is a glass in between us. We enter through separate doors, and then there's a giant glass, and we pick up the phone to talk to each other. She's a very tiny lady. She's still extremely thin and very frail. You can see her, the clothes of the prison on her are just like, super loose and bulky. She's missing her front teeth, and the rest of her teeth are in very poor condition. The condition worsened overall of her health when she was assaulted on July 30th of this year. So what happened is I had a visit scheduled on August 4th. I went in to see her as usual. I found her in an orange uniform. She's usually in a beige one. And she had burns, when I say like right here, around both of her eyes, right around her eyes. Another inmate had barged into her cell right after they had returned from their break, took a cup of hot scalding liquid, smashed it into her face. That's how she got these burns. Then Dr. Aafia went into a fetal position, is what she described to me, and the lady just kept pummeling her. I could see a massive bruise on her arm. There was, she had another something on her cheek. I couldn't even see it because she'd covered it in toothpaste and a small piece of paper. So she was in very bad condition that day. The orange uniform, of course, symbolized that she was being put in administrative segregation, which is, in other terms, they don't like to say solitary confinement in federal prisons, so they call it administrative segregation. So not only had she been the victim of this vicious assault, now she was being punished even further by being put in administrative segregation. And so her emotional, not only her physical, but her emotional and mental well-being took a real plummet that day. And she was crying and she was like, everybody's forgotten about me. Everybody's forgotten about me in here. Because it's been 18 years since the day that she was taken and disappeared off of the streets of Karachi, Pakistan. So that's where Dr. Afia is right now. Alhamdulillah, her situation her physical being has improved somewhat. But we really need, as a community, as Americans, to stand up and be like, this is not acceptable. We need to start asking questions. And what I'm going to try to do is provide you with some details of what Sheikh Yasser was describing so that you have the ability to ask these questions on her behalf. So what we were just, actually, we'll get to that later. So as Sheikh Yasser was mentioning, she was here in the United States for an extended period of time. From 1991 until 2002, Dr. Afia lived here. She's a Pakistani national, so she was living here on a student visa. So a lot of people thought she had obtained lawful permanent residency or green card during this period of time. She remained only a Pakistani national on a student visa. She went to MIT, graduated from there with a degree in biology, and then went on to Brandeis University, where she completed her PhD in neuroscience. Her specialty was her thesis, her concentration was on how children learn through imitation. So you'll read a lot of false articles online where she's described as an expert in chemical weapons or microbiology, and that's completely false. A lot of her professors were shocked when they saw these charges. They're like, nothing she was doing has any relation to these allegations whatsoever. She was literally studying how disabled children learn through imitation. So she was also very active within the Muslim community. She was always doing the fundraisers. Back then, the major issue was Bosnia in the 1990s. She was also, Imam Abdullah Farouk in Boston had mentioned that she would collect masahif and bring them out to the jails. She was, mashallah, very active Muslima. She did get married to a Pakistani national. His name was Dr. Muhammad Amjad Khan. And they went on to have 3 children. 2 of her children were born here in the United States, so they are United States citizens. So the important thing I want to mention is what could have potentially triggered these issues. So in 2002, while Dr. Afia was here in the United States, the FBI came to question her husband, not Dr. Afia. And they were asking him about purchases that he had made online of military manuals, a Kevlar vest, a night vision scope, either night vision goggles or a night vision scope, something of that sort. I don't know what the explanation he gave was, but I got all of this information. All the information I'm giving you today is from public records. So they questioned him, they let him go, and then the family moved back. Dr. Afia, her husband, and the 3 kids moved back to Karachi, Pakistan in June of 2002. The marriage was abusive, so it slowly deteriorated, and then they ended up going through divorce. What we do know is you'll see this seeking information alert. And if you read it carefully, you'll see, although the FBI has no information indicating this individual is connected to specific terrorist activities, the FBI would like to locate and question this individual. The same alert was issued for Dr. Aafia Siddiqui at the same time as this alert was issued for her husband, her ex-husband. And he, as you can see under his name, was located. So he was located, questioned, and released. During the same period of time, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui in March of 2003, with her 3 children, disappeared off of the streets of Karachi, Pakistan. And then for 5 years, we have no idea and no confirmation of where she was taken. We do know that the three children disappeared with her. Muhammad would later reappear, the eldest, with her in July of 2008. Maryam in March of 2010, and keep in mind that date, it is significant. Sulaiman, we still don't know where the baby is. We have no idea what happened to Sulaiman or where he is currently. Many individuals went missing during this time. I am pointing to these particular articles because during Dr. Afia's initial disappearance, there was a whole bunch of news reports, including NBC, that stated that Dr. Aafia had been taken into custody. And then a few days later, they walked it back. But then in 2004, May 29th, 2004, you'll see Dawn, which is a major newspaper in Pakistan, published Dr. Aafia was handed over to the US government last year. So we want to know who were the sources that were saying that Dr. Aafia Siddiqui was in either the custody of Pakistani intelligence or the United States intelligence, and why were these sources telling that to official news sites? So what happened is, for 5 years, we don't know her whereabouts. She's listed on Amnesty International's 2006 list of people who are potentially in black sites. Okay? And then she reappears all of a sudden. Okay, I thought I put the date. July 17th of 2008 in Ghazni, Afghanistan. For those of you who know the map of hundreds of miles away from Karachi, Pakistan, okay? In a totally different country. She's out in the street, doesn't speak the local language, doesn't know, can't communicate with the locals. They call the Afghan police. She gets taken in by Afghan police and is arrested with her eldest son only with her. So you see in one of those photos with the yellow curtain, you'll see Dr. Aafia Siddiqui and her eldest son. That was a press conference on July 18th, the following day of 2008, after their arrest by the Afghan police. On that same day in the afternoon, US soldiers and 2 FBI agents who were flown in from Kabul went in to question them. And this is what happens next is very important. You'll see the room that Dr. Afia was in. You'll see, this is actually a still from the documentary In Search of Prisoner 650 by Yvonne Ridley. The room is not very big. They said that the curtain was down and that the US soldiers and the 2 FBI agents went into this room, and that they did not know that Dr. Aafia Siddiqui was behind the curtain. And that one of the soldiers, out of respect for Afghan culture, put down his AK-47. And that Dr. Afia managed to grab the AK-47 without any of the individuals in the room realizing it, pick it up, turn off the, what do they call it, the safety, and start shooting at these soldiers. And that she shot twice, and then they shot her back, and she was shot multiple times in the stomach in self-defense. That's the official story, and that's what she was tried for. So what we do know for fact is that there's no physical evidence supporting that story. There's no fingerprints on the weapon. There's no gunshot residue on her person or clothing. There's no evidence of these bullets even being fired, as in nobody else is injured. There's no holes in the wall that connect to the bullets, and there's not even shell casing. There's nothing other than the testimony of the individuals that were in the room with Dr. Afia. And even that testimony was completely different, individual to individual. So what happened is she was renditioned. So initially, she suffered seriously she was in very critical situation. They evac'd her from Ghazni to Kabul to the US military hospital there. Alhamdulillah, her life was saved. And then she was renditioned to the United States to stand trial in the Southern District of New York, near where the events of 9/11 happened. She was charged with 7 counts. The 7 counts were 2 counts of attempted murder, multiple counts of assault, I believe another count of possession of a deadly weapon or something like that. But all of the counts, as Sheikh Yasser had mentioned, dealt solely with the date of July 18th of 2008. So all of the allegations online where they're calling her Lady Al-Qaeda this, mom of whatever, none of that was brought up in trial because the trial was solely, did Dr. Aafia Siddiqui pick up that weapon? And did Dr. Aafia Siddiqui fire those shots at the US soldiers and those FBI agents? That was the question put forth at trial. So her trial happened here in the Southern District of New York. So she's renditioned in 2008. She goes through competency evaluations for over a year. And they determine initially, they're like, no, she's not competent to stand trial. Then later on, that determination is reversed. They say, she must be faking it. There's no reason for her to have any kind of emotional trauma. There's no reason for her to have PTSD because there is no official acknowledgement that she was in Pakistani or US custody for those 5 years. So how and where does her trauma come from, right? So she goes to trial in January of 2010. The jury does find her guilty in February of 2010, but they find her guilty without premeditation. The judge reverses that finding, finds her, and then on all of the counts, he maxes them out. So the defense counsel was asking for 12 years since nobody else was injured. Dr. Afia doesn't have a criminal record, and she was the only one injured that day. The judge instead takes each of the counts, maxes them out. He goes, first count 20 years, second count 20 years, third count whatever, and then he charges her consecutively instead of concurrently. So she doesn't serve all of them at once, she serves them one after the other, and that's how he got the sentence of 86 years. So Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is sentenced to 86 years. She's currently exhausted most of her remedies available in court, right? So that is why we're coming to the community and we're pursuing other avenues. One of the most significant is the Inter-American Convention on Serving Criminal Sentences Abroad. If some of you may recognize this individual, this is Shah Mahmoud Qureshi. He is the he's in charge of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Pakistan. He was also in charge of this ministry when Dr. Afia was initially charged and convicted between 2008 and 2011. The reason I put his picture up here is he is a member of the cabinet of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan. And per my understanding of the rules, for this convention to get ratified, this individual, Shah Mahmoud Qureshi, he has to initiate it and bring it to the cabinet. Because as the minister in charge of the Foreign Affairs Division, he has to put it forth for a vote before the cabinet. I hope my understanding is correct. This is what I was able to gather from reading about Pakistani law online, but I'm obviously not an expert. But I can tell you what I do know is that the Pakistani cabinet, as in the cabinet of Prime Minister Imran Khan, has the ability to ratify this convention, and this would allow Dr. Aafia Siddiqui to return and serve the rest of her sentence out in Pakistan, where she could be near her children and family. So that is one of the principal options that we're pushing forward. The other thing that we have been doing, one of the first people I called when I took on Dr. Aafia Siddiqui's case is the executive director of CARE DFW, Faizan. And he was like, immediately, anything and everything I can do to help, I'm here. And so one of the things that Faizan recommended is Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. I don't know how many of you have heard of this. This is the executive summary of the Senate Intelligence Committee report, and they call it the torture report. There is this documentary available on Amazon called it's not a documentary, it's a movie with Adam Driver. It's called The Report. It's based on the author who wrote this report. So when I say executive summary, these 500 pages are only a short portion of the report. This is what's been released to the public. Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is in 2 of the footnotes. We want to know if Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is in the remainder of the over 6,000 page report that was never declassified and never released. So that's one of the things that we arranged for in terms of Faizan and I went over to Washington, D.C. with a group of supporters, Sister Nahila Morales and others. And we went to Washington, D.C. to go to our congressmen and senators and ask them to declassify the remainder of the report and ask them to ask questions. Congress is in charge of oversight over these federal agencies, including the CIA and the FBI. So Congress, we should ask our representatives, can you please ask, where was Dr. Aafia Siddiqui during those 5 years? What happened to her? Was the United States involved in any way? Was she in our custody? If she wasn't in our custody, were we involved with questioning her? We need to use the rights and the abilities that we have here in the United States to raise these questions. I can tell you the meetings that we've had so far, many of them arranged by CARE California, Samina Osman. A lot of people don't know Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. The individuals we've spoken to who are in charge of the national security for the senator and the staff, they never heard of her name. So we're clearly not doing a good job of getting her story out there. So we need to start speaking up and being like, what happened to Dr. Aafia Siddiqui? Where was she during those 5 years? I'm focusing on the 5 years with the members of Congress. And then also for those of you who have influence in Pakistan, we're asking you, the foreign minister, Shah Mahmoud Qureshi, why hasn't this convention been ratified? What is going on? Why isn't Pakistan, when they keep going out there and calling Dr. Aafia Siddiqui daughter of the nation, why aren't they bringing their daughter back home? And that is what we're looking for, the support of the community in. And that's what I have for now. Thank you.
Jazakallah, Sister Marwa, that was amazing. Thank you so much for the information. So to summarize, the things that you said that we can do, that you suggest that we can do is, if you have connections in Pakistan, try to put pressure and see why the convention isn't being pushed forward. And then here in the United States, pressure your Congress people to ask questions about where was Dr. Afia in those 5 years? What does the United States know about her whereabouts? And what was the U.S. involvement in her presence? Yeah. Okay, in her disappearance. Okay, cool. So next, I will pass on the mic to, she's online here with us today, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. She is a sister of Dr. Afia herself. And so, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fauzia. Are you there? Is she there? Okay. Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I've been hearing your talks, and first of all, I want to thank Sheikh Yasir Qazi for sharing his personal experience and also for arranging this program at EPIC. And, it's very, very difficult for me as a family member. It's personal, it's emotional, and sometimes it's very obvious. But obviously, for people who don't know about the case, a lot of things that Sister Marwa, as Afia's attorney, has said, and all needed to be said. Obviously, for me, it's been 15 years of repeating the same things. And sometimes it feels that, if people don't care, then they don't care. They will stand in front of Allah, and there will be a time that Afia will be there, and Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his beloved friend Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq next to him will be standing there, and we will all be standing there for Shifa. And if this question is asked, what did you do for my daughter Afia? What are we going to say? We never think of it like that. You know, I have raised Afia's children, and I have seen and witnessed what they have gone through, what my mother has gone through, what our whole family has gone through. But that's not what I want to talk about. But I would like to say one thing. When people ask me that, well, were Ahmed and Mariam tortured? Was that what happened? You know, were they beaten? Were they this or were they that? Or, you know, what happened to Afia and that? I'm just going to ask one question. Of all the sisters who are here and all the brothers who are here, if you separate a child, a little baby, a little toddler from their mother, could there be any worse form of torture? Could there be? Because when I asked this question to Ahmed, he was only 12 years old, and you know what he said? He said, Auntie, if they would have cut me into pieces, burnt me up, but left me in my mother's lap, it would have been less painful. But we don't think of that. When we talk of advocacy, Brother Mori very rightly said, and that, you know, we don't feel it. When we stand up for something, we don't stand up to end that suffering. We think that we have made a statement and we've done our part. And 18 years down the road, when people tell me that's sabr, it's not that easy anymore. You know, we're still trying in our own community. We are still trying to prove Afia's innocence. It should not be like that. It's very unfortunate. We are sitting in a masjid, and here is a Muslim sister who is being wronged in every way possible. And her lawyer is desperately trying to get you to understand how innocent she is, how falsely accused she was. You know, ironically, we should be, these things would be for the non-Muslims, for those, for the Mu'mineen and the Mu'minun. You know, ironically, we are direct descendants of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. We have our shajar. And ironically, Afia has been, you know, falsely accused. She has been humiliated. She has been, you know, all kinds of things have been said. And most of them by her own, out of their own guilt, in trying to ridicule her. And she's been ridiculed. Just like Aisha. Aisha, radiyallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beloved wife and the very dear daughter of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. And it was her. And of the false allegations that were put on her, that were revealed in the Quran, in Surah Nur, ayat number 13 to I think 17, where, you know, Allah has said that this time I'm forgiving you. Had you not clearly just said, when someone is saying that to a chas, to a Muslimah, to someone you know in your hearts is innocent, and someone is falsely accusing her.
So Dr. Fawzia,
Putting,
I have a
Yes.
question. Could you describe, like, when you heard these accusations, when you heard that they were claiming that she had shot these U.S. soldiers and that they were renditioning her to the United States? Can you tell us what was going through your head? What was the family going through at the time?
Exactly these ayahs of the Quran and my ummah. That was the first thing that came to my head. You know, why could not my brothers and sisters, Afia's brothers and sisters, and the hundreds and thousands that Afia helped, those that call her her own, those that call themselves Muslims, where are they? When I heard she was shot, I did not believe it. When I heard she had been arrested in 2003, I remember that day vividly. I was rounding at the Sinai in Boston, Baltimore, with Johns Hopkins. I was rounding, and the TV on the screen in the ward was there, and Tom Brokaw's morning show was there. And I saw Tom Brokaw saying that Afia has been kidnapped, she's been arrested, and handed over to the FBI. It was very clearly reported with snapshots and everything. But who cares? 18 years down the road, the same question. What happened to her? What happened to her? That should not be it. Because, especially not the Muslims, they should not be. I know it's bitter, but it is the truth. And it is a fact. And it is very, very, very painful.
Did the family have
It's
to go
sad.
through? Did the family have to go through you or Dr. Afia's children? Did you guys have to go through any questioning by the FBI when you guys came to the United States? Was there any interaction with the government and you guys while she had disappeared?
Does that even matter anymore 18 years down the road? That's my question. I mean, why are we still digging backwards? Why? 18 years down, why? That is my question to the audience. That is my question to you also, sister. Does that matter what we have gone through? Is that going to bring Afia back? You know, if just what Ahmed said, you know, whatever torture they've done to us, talking about that, will that bring Afia back? Do you know how painful it is to relive those moments, to relive these moments?
I understand that it must have been very traumatic what you guys went through. So, can you tell us a little bit about the I Am Afia movement then? How did that come about? What are your hopes and goals for the movement? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, you see, my hope and goal has always been, and I truly believe that there's not the American legal system, unfortunately, post 9/11 for Muslims and actually for minorities in general is not going to be that helpful. I don't think so, but obviously it is something that we have to continue. But I think this is a test of the Ummah, this is a test of the people, this is a test of humanity. Afia's case, Afia's ordeal is universal in appeal, and it's human at its core. So until the human in us isn't woken up. So the I Am Afia campaign actually is, Sister Nahila came up with it, but we were doing something similar. But we had a we, and she came up with I. And the thing is that I think that nowadays our youth and all, until something is personal, and what I want, if anyone wants to do anything for Afia, I don't want them to be doing it for me or for her children, or I want them to be doing it for themselves, for their own salvation. To think that when they will be standing on the day of judgment, they will have an answer to the question, what did you do for Afia Siddiqui? Because Afia always stood up. Afia was on every protest that she saw, she would ask. I know when I was in Boston and we would be driving, she would see a protest or something. It didn't matter who it was. She would ask, have you been wronged? And they would say, well, this. And if she thought that this person or this protest is for someone who has been wronged or a cause that is just, she would stand there. She would take a play card. She would stand there. And I would tell her, what's the use? What's the point? Yes, I would say that. And you know what she would say? She said, up there, the heads are being seen and counted. Protests need numbers. There are only a few here. One more head, at least I can say that I was there. You know, when thousands of people come out in Karachi, when thousands of people come out to protest for Afia, I know it's not because of me. I know it's what Afia used to do for those who could not speak for themselves. And I think we all owe it to her. And this is not for her. This is for us, because we will be asked. And our iman will be judged on how we have reacted on Afia. Are we going to just completely continue to keep blaming her, or trying to find something, some fault somewhere in what we have done or what I have done wrong? Look, we're human beings and we all make mistakes, but we have to stick together to help each other. So this I am Afia came with that. So if you join our campaign and you want to do something for Afia, please own her. Please put a picture of yourself with, you know, a play card saying I am Afia, or, you know, just a hashtag I am Afia, and put it. Do it every Friday. Every Friday, wear a yellow scarf, or wear, you know, a yellow cap, or just a yellow, you know, a yellow piece of paper with the I am Afia, your picture, and that, you know, you lock up one Afia, we are all Afias. That is the campaign that's going on every Friday with yellow. And I can see Sister Marwa is wearing yellow even now. And I think she's just made it. You know, where the legal issues, I leave completely to the lawyers, and I let them do that. You wanted to know how you feel. It is very painful that so many years down the road, a whole generation has gone by, and still, you know, people keep asking, well, she must have done something. Do you know how painful that question is? And it keeps making me go back. And why I'm saying that even now, please read those ayahs of Surah Nur. You know, we will be asked. I feel that way. I'm not a mufti. I'm not a sheikh. I don't know. Afia was a hafiz of Quran. I am not. Afia was an encyclopedia of the Quran. If I needed to ask something or ask where what is or how it is, I would just call Afia. I would just ask her, you know.
Jazakallah khair for that information, for telling us about your experience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you all sabr, and may, inshallah, we'll be able to participate in the I Am Afia movement. So to recap what you said, to participate, do something with your profile picture on social media, yellow hijab, pick art or something that just says I Am Afia, posted every Friday. Inshallah, we'll get that movement going. Jazakallah khair for your time, and thank you for being here. And inshallah, we will move on to the next speaker. Finally, lastly, we have for speaking for on during this program today, we have the CARE's Executive Director, Brother Faizan Sayed.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أما بعد. My brothers and sisters, all of us have heard again the story of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. All of us know that the case of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is one of the greatest cases of injustice in US history. It is a case of this PhD who has a PhD in neuroscience, who has been put into jail and has already been in jail for 13 years for a crime that she did not do. Dr. Aafia Siddiqui, as Dr. Yasser Qadi mentioned, after September 11th, not only was Islam hijacked, but the United States was also hijacked. And the people who hijacked the United States were people who wanted war and to create these black sites around the world. People who got rid of habeas corpus and the right for everybody to have a free trial so they could have revenge for those who, quote unquote, did this attack. And Dr. Aafia Siddiqui was caught up in this situation that happened at that time, and she is still in jail to this day. My brothers and sisters, at CARE, we have a strategy to get Dr. Afia released from jail. So often, when we talk about these political prisoners, when we talk about these cases, we do it in the understanding that they'll never get out. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, we're all talking about, but we know inside that it won't happen. Dr. Afia's case is different fundamentally. How are we going to get Dr. Aafia Siddiqui out of jail? We're following the following strategy. Number one, we are pressuring the United States government and the Pakistani government to sign this treaty that can allow Dr. Aafia Siddiqui to serve her sentence in Pakistan, inshallah. This is something that is not in America's wheelhouse. It is completely in the Pakistani government's wheelhouse. Meaning that if you are from Pakistan, if you have helped build a dam in Pakistan or help build hospitals in Pakistan, if you know somebody who's in politics in Pakistan, you have a direct ability to put pressure on that country for them to sign on to this treaty, and that is something that we are going to be pushing until that treaty is signed and Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is returned home. Do not assume that it is America standing in the way of Dr. Afia's release. It is the Pakistani government. They have the ability right here, right now, today, to take those actions and to bring Dr. Aafia Siddiqui home. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to the legal aspect of it, we are meeting with Congress. Just a few months ago, we were in Washington, D.C., and we held multiple meetings with congressional officials. Why? For two reasons. Number one, we want them to release that secret intelligence report that Marwa was saying. In that report, there are 2 footnotes that mention Dr. Aafia Siddiqui by name. If we can show that the United States held Dr. Aafia Siddiqui and maybe even her children in black sites, then this is something that we could bring a lawsuit against the United States even, and that is something that we are continuing to pursue, and that's something that Congress will, inshallah, release to us, and that information will help us do this suit. Number 3, a retrial. How do you get a retrial to happen? How do you pursue that? Simply put, in order to get a retrial, you need different information and you need different facts. The funds that we are collecting with CARE for this campaign that's going to Marwa and going to our office for Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is going to be used to hire private investigators, is going to be used to hire and pursue other avenues of information. If we can get new facts, if we can question those 6 witnesses, those soldiers and those FBI agents who basically, in my opinion, made up the whole story that Dr. Afia tried to shoot at them, if we can find where they are and question them, if they can recant and maybe give us new information, this is another way. However, the law is expensive. Meeting with government officials is difficult. It requires money, time, resources, and strategy, but it is something that we are dedicated to be relentless until Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is free. Dr. Afia's case is not like other cases. It's not like the case of Imam Jamil El-Amin or others who really have very limited ways to get out. Dr. Afia is a Pakistani citizen. She is not a US citizen. Because of that, she has the right, if the Pakistani government chose to do so, if Imran Khan actually believed and did what he put in his niyat to do, which is that they can get her out of jail. They can sign this agreement and she will be released. You will see us again in Washington, D.C. You will see us in Pakistan in the next few months, inshallah, and we will not stop until this happens. My brothers and sisters, tonight we are here to re-educate you on the fact of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. We are here to encourage you to support this campaign, support the legal fees and the advocacy campaign that we have. Number 3, many of you are very well connected to the Pakistani government. Many of you are, whether it's in this room or as people who are joining us on YouTube. You have an obligation and a responsibility to see Dr. Aafia Siddiqui return home, for her to embrace her children, for this nightmare for her to end, and you can do it. Even me, when I was in Richardson, Texas, I was having breakfast in Richardson, and one of the brothers came in there. He helps build hospitals in Pakistan, and he can actually call Imran Khan. SubhanAllah, just an everyday uncle in our community. That's the connection we have. You put pressure on the government to do so, and this can happen, inshallah. Last but not least, do not lose hope. Not only can Dr. Aafia Siddiqui be free, but she will be free, because she must be free. This case of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui reminds me so much of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, a person who was put in jail unjustly because the society that he lived in would rather see a servant put in jail than a rich person be accused of infidelity. Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is the result of the so-called war on terror. She is the result of black sites being opened overseas. She is the result of a biased, racist judicial system that did not see her as a woman or as a mother, but saw her as Lady Al-Qaeda and a terrorist, even though she was never charged for that in the actual courts. The reason I mentioned the story of Yusuf al-Islam is because I believe so sincerely that the years of famine are coming to Pakistan and around the world. If Dr. Aafia Siddiqui is not released, this international case whose injustice is so obvious, what's going to happen in the future for that nation? My brothers and sisters, I'll conclude with this. We are dedicated to seeing Dr. Aafia Siddiqui released, and we need your help to get her out of jail. We are dedicated to going back to Congress, to go into Pakistan and pushing this effort forward and not allowing those to be done. We are dedicated to getting this intelligence report released. We are dedicated to hire independent investigators to get new information on our case to potentially bring a retrial. We are dedicated. However, each one of us today, right here, right now, has to make an internal intention. What are you going to do to right this wrong? What are you going to do? You have many options. Last thing I'll say is you can, if you want to get involved, if you want to make a chance, if you want to come to Washington, D.C., if you want to learn about the legal strategy, if you want to help us in our campaign in Pakistan, visit freedrafia.org. Freedrafia.org is a website that CARE runs along with the daily law practice, and you'll see the strategy being unloaded over there, inshallah. Last but not least, as Dr. Yasser Qadi mentioned, all of us, if we can't do anything, remember Dr. Aafia Siddiqui after Salah. Remember Dr. Aafia Siddiqui in the middle of the night. If you wake up, remember her when you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that is the greatest weapon of the believers, inshallah. With that, jazakallah khair for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Faizan. So at this point, we're going to be passing out note cards for people to do Q&As. Please write your questions down, and then moderators will bring them to the front, and we will ask questions to the specific speakers. So while we wait for questions, I have a question for Sister Marwa. Sister Marwa, while you were talking about Sister Afia and her conditions in the prison, can you tell us a little bit about how she's able to maintain her Islamic identity? Like, is she able to wear a hijab? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So her family does fund her commissary account, and she can only purchase items in her commissary. One of the items that is included is a headscarf. So she is able to maintain her hijab in the prison, and also, yeah, I mean, I guess that gets the answer to the question.
Oh, thank you. That was really informative. Another question for Dr. Fauzia specifically. Can you tell us a little bit about how your mother has been doing with handling all this everything that's been going on?
Yes, just a minute, the video went off. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, how our mother has been doing is a question that's kind of obvious also, that she's a mother. And however I feel, or anyone, what she feels obviously is worse. But how sometimes people ask us, how do we cope? And So it's our mother. It's her faith. I mean, you know, when I say, you know, nothing's going to happen, we're doing all these campaigns, hundreds and thousands of people come to the streets. You know what my mom says? No one loves Afia more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She has the Quran with her. And Allah is the one who has put her in that position. And Allah is the one who is going to get her out. This is our test. You are doing what you are, and you continue to do what you feel is right. Leave the results to Allah. Her faith, her iman, mashallah, you know, every time we're going down, it is her iman, her faith that bounces us back. Mashallah. But physically, our mother is not doing very well. Her kidneys, she's in chronic renal failure, and physically she keeps getting, she has difficulty walking, and the usual things along with the age and with chronic renal failure, and the swelling in the arms and legs and difficulty writing. So, but apart from that, in spirit, she keeps us all going, and everyone that comes and visits her and talks to her goes back refreshed, I'm pretty sure, because we have been able to cope because of her deep belief, and her belief in humanity and in everyone. And she did ask me specifically to say, and since you have asked, and that to convey to everyone that each and every person that has come out and that has spoken for her daughter and for Afia, they're always in her du'as, and she always prays and gives one specific dua especially, that may Allah never, ever let anyone who has stepped or spoken for Afia to suffer the pain of their loved one, or to witness the pain of the separation of their loved one. So that is what my mother has always asked me to say at the end of whenever I talk anywhere, to give that dua to everyone.
Ameen.
I hope that answers.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. We have a few questions that are around the same topic, and it's, did Sister Afia tell you where she was in the past 5 years?
So I can tell you during her trial, and she maintains that she was in black sites. She doesn't know the exact location. She told me that, and she also told this in public, and that's why I can speak freely about it, that she was moved to multiple locations she does not know where. It has been at least 13 years since she was renditioned to the United States. But she didn't know how often, she can't recall how often, but she was kept in dark rooms and moved multiple times.
And then another question is, somebody said that they don't understand why Pakistan's government's not helping to free her. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Can I answer that?
Out there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
I
we
think
go.
Sister Fose is in a better position to answer than that.
Well, actually, I think, for them, it's not a priority. It's not that they don't want to, because Afia is such a public figure. Everyone, she's a house